AM 1160 and WCCSradio.com. Good morning. 9:44. It is 16 minutes away from 10 o'clock. And we're glad you're with us here today. Let's get to this.
This morning's Indiana in the Morning segment with the Conservative Energy Network is brought to you by Sunnyfield Renewable Energy. Energy matters. Let's talk.
And indeed, our talk begins this morning with Justin Mason from the Conservative Energy Network. And Justin, a special guest on the phone this morning, too.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Todd, and thank you so much for having me. Excited for another edition of Energy Matters. Let's talk. And this morning, we are joined by the CEO of Conservative Energy Network, Mr. John Soko, former North Carolina State House representative member who left the State House and, much like our esteemed Jim Gregory, stood up as the CEO of the Conservative Energy Network.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Let's welcome into the program. John, good morning.
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me on your show.
I'm glad that you're here with us today because we've got questions for you.
Good.
And I think a lot of people would be surprised, but Jim is one example. You're another of people who move from within government circles to identify an issue that they really are passionate about, and maybe in a surprising way for some folks, because you were a member of the Republican leadership, and yet here you are talking solar power. You're not allowed to do that, are you?
Well, I think I am. I didn't ask permission, but I just kind of did it.
Well, there you go. You were the chair of the Energy Committee in the legislature, and it's a really, really difficult thing to understand the complexities that are involved in energy legislation. We've certainly have experienced that here in Pennsylvania. The RGGI regulations are. Representative Struzzi and Senator Pittman have been battling that for a number of years. They've got the court ruling on their behalf. But one of the things that they have championed, and I know you have as well, is the fact that, energy is really a big, big category, and there's a lot of room within it, and solar has to be a part of that whole bag.
And it does. And frankly, if you're at home listening to this right now and you turn your lights on or you have the radio on, your appliance isn't asking you if it's a Republican electron or a Democrat electron, because there's no such thing. Electrons are electrons. And we need to really work together on this very important issue because in the next 5 years, there could very well be a shortage of electrons. And each source of generation plays its own crucial part in providing those electrons, so we all have lights and refrigerators and stoves and everything else.
We have been talking here about the Homer City Redevelopment Project, and it really applies across the whole energy spectrum. Towns and communities and state legislators as well, they need to have a really firm grip on what policy is and what policy will result in. And so if you were in the position of talking to those local leaders, the state leaders, the legislators themselves about how it is that they could incorporate solar and other so-called alternative forms of energy into the entire picture, what would be the steps that you think that they should take?
Well, using myself as an example, the first thing to do is get educated so you're not just listening to and repeating something you read on social media or you hear on the television. I'll tell you a short story. When I was first elected to the legislature in North Carolina, somebody asked me what I thought about solar, and what I told them was I think it's a bunch of hooey and it wouldn't exist without a bunch of federal subsidies. And I had a lobbyist who represented a conservative organization come to my office, ask me that question, I gave him that answer. And she kind of cocked her head and said, we have a different opinion. And I said, oh, what's that? And she told me. And 2 points. One is I trust her because it's not always just the message, it's the messenger. And the second thing was what she said made sense, and it got my interest up. So I did some study. Long story short, after several months, what I found was that solar wasn't only propped up by government subsidies. It was a very valuable part of the energy mix that in North Carolina we needed to avoid blackouts and brownouts and other things. So, you have to get past your own prejudices and what you might have built up listening to social media or the TV, no matter what channel you listen to. I mean, they're all skewed one way or another, and do some research and find out what the real value of each energy generation source is. Solar, I hear this all the time. Well, when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, blah, 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 it's not reliable. Blah, blah. Okay. I would tell people to take a look at ERCOT, which is in Texas, serves about 21 million people, and it's the Houston area, and it goes all the way to West Texas. It's the freest energy market in the country. Mm-hmm. Solar, wind are a huge part of that, backed up by batteries. And this last summer, there were 3 days where if they didn't have the amount of solar on the grid that they did, they'd have had brownouts. So there's no one energy source that's exclusively, air quotes, the best. Each has their role. Solar plays in my opinion, plays a vital role, not only in ERCOT, but in North Carolina. And it can play a vital role in that project too.
Well, one of the interesting things to me about it all is in your situation, you're a former legislator, and I'm sure that you run into others who are still in the legislature in whatever state it happens to be, and they will tell you there's no such thing as utility scale solar.
Yeah, I do, and I hear that often, and it goes back to kind of what I described here. They need to get educated first, because solar is definitely, by several different metrics, one of the least expensive forms of energy generation. A lot of people are into nuke right now, and they say, oh, nuke. Well, that's not going to be around in any amount that's going to make any significant difference until 2035. Solar is, compared to nuke especially, is very inexpensive. It is reliable. Utilities have to know what they're doing, and most utilities do when they integrate solar into the network. It's not adding risk to the network, in my opinion. It's actually adding stability, because nobody can predict the weather, and the sun doesn't always shine. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. But if you've got solar and you've got battery backup and you have your other generators, gas turbine generators there, they all work together in a very complex dance of generating energy. I think people get too set in what they think they know is the truth, and then legislators and town officials and county officials need to be able to step away from what they think they know and actually listen to somebody who's a trusted messenger, which Justin is and Jim is in Pennsylvania, and I believe I am, and actually get educated to see how things work together.
Justin, let's ask you about that, because you talked to guys like Senator Pittman and Representative Struzzi and others in the legislature, so you had that experience. It really is a matter of getting information out to the public and to the decision makers in a community, and sometimes getting that information out involves knocking down some barriers that have been constructed around it so that it can't get out. You have to knock down those walls in order to get the information flowing.
You do. You have to have hard conversations. You have to address preconceived notions, and you have to meet those notions with facts. And there's a lot of thought here in Pennsylvania that because we don't have the most sunny days of other states within the Sun Belt region to our south, like John is endowed with, that solar just simply isn't viable here. And that is so wrong. Even Representative Gregory, now Executive Director Gregory, came into this organization with me, and he's like, Justin, I have a $300 a month bill. Prove to me that something can be done here, please. Now Jim enjoys a $20 a month electric bill because he deployed solar on his roof, much like CEO Soka has done on his home. If you put your money up, you're going to see that money come back. Look at the 800% increase on the capacity market price on a single megawatt, going from, I think it was roughly $29 to $259.
Yeah.
The proof's in the pudding, and that's going to exponentially return for the years to come.
Yeah, that's the PGM auction, and
It is.
and there's going to be another auction, and the price ain't going down.
$349 for the next year.
Yeah, it is not going down. John, when you hear numbers like that, of course, it makes perfect sense. And yes, Pennsylvania's sunny fields aren't quite as sunny as your fields are in North Carolina or some other places, but there's plenty of sun available for solar power.
There absolutely is. And solar power obviously works during the day. And you listeners may or may not know this, but just looking at your lights, you have two peaks of usage during the day when everybody gets out of bed, get the kids ready to go to school, cook breakfast. That's one peak, and that's the winter peak is when that is the highest. And then the summer peak, and on a normal day it goes like this. You go to work in commercial buildings, you're usually not cooking food all day. So anyway, the demand goes down there a day, and demand starts to go up again in the afternoon when kids get home from school, people get home from work, you cook supper, give the kids a bath, put them to bed, and then it goes down again. So during the real role and benefit of solar is because it is mostly less expensive than combined cycle gas turbines, certainly much less expensive than coal. What happens to the extra energy that's generated during the day? What happens in a lot of cases, it's paired with batteries, either on site or somewhere else on the grid, and then that's released at times of the morning or the afternoon peak. And what does that mean? It means you don't have to run a more expensive generation like a combined cycle gas turbine or something else. So it's this intricate dance of balancing things to get the least cost to consumers. And that's one of the things that's really why I got into the energy space, because it's like, how do I help my constituents pay less on their energy bills? So utility scale solar is a large part of that, no matter where you are. And, New York, you get a little bit higher latitude. It works well there, too. It works in New England. You don't have to be in the American Southwest to have good use of utility scale solar.
We are almost out of time with John Soka and Justin Mason, Conservative Energy Network. So think back a year, think back 2 or 3 years, where the message was then as opposed to where it is now. Is it getting out there?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one, because you go back to the Biden administration, the Trump administration, they definitely have two different ideas about how we should be generating our electrons. And quite frankly, I don't think either message is spot on. One was skewed too far one way, and the other is skewed too far the other. My experience in the legislature, the best bills, the most enduring bills, were the ones where you reached across the aisle and reached out to somebody you don't usually work with, and you negotiated something that neither one of you were really thrilled about, and some of your constituents might not have been thrilled about, but you know what? It worked, and it usually saved money for everybody, and it endured rather than this pendulum back and forth of policy extremes. So I always advise legislators, congressmen, U.S. senators, members of the current federal administration, look, let's not be so dogmatic, and let's focus on why elected officials are elected. You're elected to help your constituents. And no matter what level you're elected at, if you keep that first and foremost, that will help deal with the other side and come up with better policy.
He's the CEO of the Conservative Energy Network. Justin, last word for you. What do people need to do to learn more?
They can visit conservativeenergynetwork.com and they can read up on our most recent poll that was conducted here in 2025 about ratepayer affordability and reliability. Excellent poll conducted with Signal.
All right. Justin, appreciate it. John, appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you very much for having me on your show. Thanks.
All right. There you go.
Thank you, sir.
It is Indiana in the Morning, WCCS. Matt just stepped back into the newsroom. Matt, what's up?
Well, Todd, I just received word that there is a winter storm parking notice for Clymer Borough due to the upcoming winter storm. And to allow for safe and efficient snow removal, all residents are required to park vehicles on the right side of the street. That's the even-numbered house side. when off-street parking is unavailable. This temporary parking restriction will remain in effect for the duration of snow and ice. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation from the Clymer Borough Public Works Office.
All right, thanks, Matt. It's Indiana in the Morning, WCCS.
The First Commonwealth Community Calendar is on the air, and now it's online too. That's great news for WCCSradio.com. You can view the First Commonwealth Community Calendar